Abdaal is a very smart guy, right? I mean, he went to Cambridge Medical School and that's not easy. And look at him, he even looks smart. But he did make some mistakes in his video about online dating. And since I've managed the dating profiles of entrepreneurs, professionals, and even YouTubers like him, let's correct those. But I will also let you know all the things he got right and review his dating profile with some spicy comments and how you can avoid them. But before rating his profile, let's see what he has to say about online dating.
Anyone can do, which is online dating. Now, I'm not an expert on this myself, obviously.
His first mistake is when it comes to how couples meet. He states a study where 39% of the couples met online, but this study is from 2017. The last time I checked, we're a couple of years ahead of that. And right now, the statistics have shown that over 50% of people have met online, completely dwarfing every other method. So I do agree with him when he states that online dating is a great way to meet somebody. His second mistake is when he talks about platforms. You see, the market share is shown is completely off. Plenty of Fish is nowhere near the top 3 apps. The top 3 apps currently are clearly Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. When it comes to selecting the apps, he recommends the following.
If you're new to this dating app stuff, I would say either just go for Hinge.
But this is bad advice for some and good advice for others. You see, when he goes on a dating app, he's practically a girl. What I mean by that is a lot of people will recognize him and swipe him right. Besides him being decent looking, he's also a millionaire and living in a city with a population of almost 10 million. So this advice, it was great for him, but for others it's just terrible. If you already get very few matches, the worst thing you can do is limiting this even further by only using one application. Now after that, we need to talk about Tinder. On the internet, Tinder just gets a very bad rap nowadays. It's labeled by many people as a purely hookup app. In certain countries, Tinder is by far the biggest app and Hinge isn't even available. Besides that, some people also just prefer Tinder because it's more of a less serious vibe and some people just prefer that. And we've had many clients who actually ended up in a relationship from Tinder. Now, is it the best for it? Probably not. But does it still work? Yes. One thing I agree with him about is subscriptions.
The other thing that I would recommend is once you've picked an app, you should buy the premium subscription to the app.
You see, you have zero problem with ordering food instead of making it yourself. Yeah, a lot of people get goofy when it comes to spending money on dating apps. Now, it don't mean that you need it to succeed or that you should waste all of your money on it, but it will make your results and overall experience on the app a lot better. So spending a little bit of money is something that you should definitely consider. His next mistake is interesting and probably has to do with the fact that he's a content creator.
Step 1 is to pick some decent photos.
But that's not what most people need. Most people actually need to make decent photos. Most photos aren't great on dating apps, so in order to get great ones, you probably need to get a photo shoot. Picking your best photos out of some awful selfies or drunk vacation photos is simply just a recipe for disaster. Then again, when it comes to photo advice, he gets it right.
According to the photographers, you want to avoid using selfies. Maybe limit yourself to 1 selfie out of the 6 photos that you've got. And generally, candid photos apparently do better than the photos in which you're posing.
So let's take a look at his profile and conversation advice. The first interesting tip is when he states that you should be very precise when writing things down. That way, people can give their opinion about it.
You want to try and be more specific in your responses. So for example, you might be saying that trying to learn a new song on the guitar, Eyes Closed by Ed Sheeran at the moment.
And while this is great advice, we should not forget the actual thing that's working. You see, when you state that you just bought the newest E31 model train in blue, it's not going to give you a lot of brownie points. And this actually goes hand in hand with his next point. He says that you should portray yourself as accurately as possible.
You want to try and present yourself as accurately as possible and true to yourself rather than putting on a front.
And even though I agree with him, this comes with a giant silver lining. You see, he's a millionaire YouTuber who was previously a doctor and it's all amazing. Yet, if you aren't Mr. Perfect, there's nothing wrong with doing a little bit of window dressing. In the end, the thing that matters most is your personality and the chemistry. Now, of course, I don't recommend you to come up with a completely fake persona like some other people recommend, but still, some small tweaks here and there will obviously get you a lot better results. Now let's talk about the matching and chatting part. One important thing to note is that nowadays we can't use the old swiping method. The old method where you swipe everybody to the right simply is just not going to work. Those are the good old days. Right now, you need to make sure that you swipe on the people that you only are interested in. Now, obviously, you need to be realistic. If your profile is a 7, you cannot only swipe on 9s and 10s. So swipe the people within your range and you'll be fine. When it comes to an opening, we agree. Don't be boring and say to like, hey, how are you?
You want to try and make your opening lines a bit more interesting and a bit more unique.
The second part when it comes to texting is often overlooked. And this is what matters a lot, definitely if you're a busy person. You see, in order to go from opening to date, there are a certain amount of messages have been exchanged. But there's also like a timer ticking in the background. So when you only open app every 2 to 3 days, the timer that's going to run out before you hit the point where you can actually make the date happen. This will result in horrible results for online dating apps. And I get it, you have a busy life and you don't like texting that much, but it is a requirement in order to get successful on dating apps. Now, obviously, it would be amazing if you could just outsource the initial messaging. It actually sounds like a great business. Oh wait, that's actually what we do for our clients. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check the description and click a link to book a call. But if you're going to manage it yourself, make sure to log in multiple times a day and do the messaging. A tip for this is that you should schedule it into your calendar and set a couple of reminders so you don't forget about it. One tip that he gave, which was very interesting, was the following. Always go on a second date, because a lot of people suck at first dates. And even though this was a very interesting tip, it doesn't really explain the whole story. You see, this tip is mostly geared towards women, which he failed to mention. The reason for this is simple. For men, personality plays a significant role, accounting for about 75% of their considerations. For women, the thing that matters most in getting selected is their looks. That's why catfishing gets done mostly by women. And there is a lot of women that will shut a guy down purely based off his performance on his first date. But it might just be that the guy is nervous and not good at dating. Maybe he's just not a giant player and hasn't had hundreds of dates. For men, the judging is much easier. If the girl looks like on her photo and it's pretty interesting, we'll date them again. But I guess that's a problem when you give very broad advice instead of focusing purely on men or women. The last point before you take a look at his profile is an overlooked one. You see, some dates are amazing and some dates will just be bad. And after the date happened, you want to move on. You want to get the next partner and set up the next date. But it can be quite helpful to spend some time after each date to evaluate.
Is less about what were the specific things I liked about this person, where you're trying to kind of assess them as if it was a job interview. And it's more about how did you feel as a result of that interaction.
But enough about the good and the bad things, let's talk about some fun things. Let's take a look at his profile. First, we have a photo in which he has at a high tea, acting candid and looking off to the side. So, should we roast it? Okay, let's dive in. The downsides are as follows. Number 1, the food tray is in the way. It would have been a lot better if it was a little bit more to the side so we can see him more clear. His hair looks alright, but he had a lot better hair days. When you take a look at this photo, you can see his hair looks a lot better. One of his weaknesses is actually his nose. So turning to the side just to show that off is probably not the best idea when it comes to the first photo. And having the shadow hit it makes it kind of even worse. But overall, not a terrible photo. I would give this like a 7.5. Now let's talk about Ali's vulnerable side. Well, at least that's what he calls it. And even though I like the fact that he's acting very candid in the photo, the overall photo is not the best, mainly because the background just isn't that great. He's also wearing the same shirt that he was on the first photo. Great shirt, by the way, but it would have been better if it was a different one. But all in all, I will give this photo a 6.5. And if you want to make sure that you know more about online dating than Ali and get a goldmine of a dating profile, make sure to subscribe. I share a lot of things when it comes to online dating, and if you're single, you should definitely check out the channel. Now we get a photo with him and his child. At least if you had a child with Kim Kardashian, that is. Anyway, the photo is kind of making a mistake. You see, it's like overly explicit. Some nurses might find it funny, but other people will find it tacky. And also his outfit and look in this photo is not really that great. This one is a bit worse and gets like a 5 out of 10. Now we found out that he's a doctor based on a lost image, but this one does it a lot better. And even though the lighting is bad and it's a selfie, it's still actually a pretty decent one. His smile is nice and you can see that he's a real doctor. All in all, pretty decent photo, and I would rate this one a 7. And guess what's back? You guessed it correctly, the white shirt. Now this photo is actually good based on multiple reasons. First, it looks like he's important because he's in front of a camera. Besides that, he is also with another famous person. This does not mean that everybody will recognize the host of Diary of a CEO podcast, but the one that will recognize it, he will gain like 100 extra points. His outfit looks good and overall it looks like he's an important person in the room. All in all, this photo is getting a 9 and should probably be his second photo, if not his first. And lastly, we have the mandatory group photo to show that he has friends. And this one is kind of confusing. You see, like, he made this important doctor, podcaster, important person vibe, and then he's standing there with a tractor, which is kind of a bit weird. Besides that, the photo looks like it's been taken in university like 5 or 10 years ago. Overall, this is just not a great one, and I would rate this one a 5. But overall, I'm rating his profile as 7.2, and he's doing a lot better than most people, but obviously, like we discussed, he still has some leaks. So in summary, here are the problems that he is currently facing. Same outfit in way too many photos, bad background and bad lighting, some messy hair in some photos, a bit cringy and random here and there. Now, when you look at celebrities, you can actually learn a lot. For example, did you know that Mark Zuckerberg went through quite the transformation when it comes to looks? If you want to know his secrets, make sure you click on the video shown on screen. And don't forget to like and subscribe.